room when Jam Master Jay was killed. Jay, Lydia, and Tony.
Even when people have valuable information that can help solve a crime, sometimes they're not confident that they will be kept safe.
There was definitely outcry about the case. How come it's not solved yet?
Eventually, everything in the dark comes to light.
In this second episode of a two-part special, witnesses unveil a reprisal for a deal gone wrong.
They were working with Jam Master Jay was because they were close to him. His childhood friend and his godson.
He had felt that he had been wronged by Jason and that this was vengeance for that.
You cannot be successful in the drug trade without being ruthless, and a message needed to be sent.
And we dig into the decades-long quest to bring justice for a tragic chapter in hip-hop history.
Their strengths in this case were also their weaknesses.
Lydia's fear in the courtroom was palpable.
Anyone would be afraid of making an enemy out of a killer.
On October 30th, 2002, hip-hop legend Jason Mizell, aka Jam Master Jay, is shot and killed in the 24/7 studio in Queens.
There were only 3 people in the room when Jam Master Jay was killed. Jay, Lydia, and Tony. Lydia and Tony later tell us that 2 men stormed into the studio. One of these men shot Jay in the back of the head, killing him instantly on the spot.
But in the aftermath of the shooting, neither Lydia nor Tony identifies the suspects.
It was complicated because of the fear factor with Lydia and Tony. I knew it was going to be difficult.
Even when people have valuable information that can help solve a crime, sometimes they're distrustful of law enforcement, or they don't feel comfortable that law enforcement can actually keep them safe.
I would think anyone would be afraid of making an enemy out of a killer.
Several months later, Lydia finally comes forward, picking one of the men out of a photo lineup.
She knew one of the men involved in this crime. She knew Ronald, and Ronald was the person that was holding her down. But she didn't know the shooter. She didn't know the person who was responsible for murdering Jay.
Everybody knew Ronald Washington. They knew the type of person he was and what he was about.
They were well aware of his drug activity. Everyone in the community knew about it. And they knew that him and Jay grew up together.
Investigators suspect that Jay was also involved with narcotics.
There was a long piece that came out in Playboy magazine that was going through a complete detailed account of the fact that Jam Master Jay was involved with drug activity.
The author interviewed Ronald in prison, and what Ronald said was that this whole murder was because it was a drug deal gone bad.
But the exact connection between Jay, Ronald Washington, and the illegal drug scene remains unclear.
Ronald Washington's name remained at the forefront of the investigation. Investigators and prosecutors believed he was involved, but lacked the evidence to prove it. The identity of the actual shooter remained a mystery.
You had people that were very protective of Jason Mizell and his reputation, and they felt putting him in the narcotics industry at all was going to harm his reputation, and they didn't want to disrespect him after he had passed.
Washington was in jail on another unrelated case, and he was doing time. They had time on their side.
But the months turn into years, leaving Jay's friends, family, and fans frustrated.
There was definitely outcry about the case. How come it's not solved yet? You gotta remember, Jay got killed in 2002. Tupac was killed in the 90s and Biggie was killed in the 90s. So between 2003, 2004 to the 18, other rappers were involved in other homicides. So the public was like, every time something came up about a rap murder, how come these cases are not solved?
Obviously, you want justice for it. You know, I wanted justice for my friend, but I didn't want to just blame somebody who didn't do it. So to me, it was necessary to wait this long because eventually everything in the dark comes to light.
He was like a dad to me. So it was like, I lost my dad, and then my grandmother lost her son, my mother lost her brother, you know, so it's rough. It was very hard to deal with. So TJ and Jesse and Jason Jr., they grow up without a dad.
As the case remains unsolved, Jay's legacy takes shape.
In 2009, Run DMC were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were the first hip-hop group to ever get that honor.
When they got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it just sucked because Jay wasn't there. Jay would have loved it. He would have bragged about it a little bit, and in a playing manner, because he wasn't a type of guy that thought he was better than anyone, but he would joke and say, you know, yeah, we in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Like he would be very happy and very proud.
Hollis, Queens, like most parts of New York City, has become gentrified, and a lot of the crime has reduced, thankfully. They cleaned up the area. But where Jam Master Jay is, there's a mural of him there. They renamed the street after him. They just really have celebrated who he was in that particular community, which he was a big deal as Jam Master Jay and Hollis, Queens goes together.
In addition to the many accolades, there was a lot more to his legacy, to include Scratch Academy, which would further the progression of DJing in general amongst future DJs and current and present DJs.
DJing, again, is an exclusive club, and before Scratch Academy, DJs were super secretive about their techniques. Only people in your camp would learn that trick that you knew how to do. People that you trusted, your friends. But here's this school that is doing the opposite. They're teaching people, whoever wants to walk in and learn how to do these secret techniques that only DJs like myself knew how to do. DJing, hip-hop culture in general, was a way out for kids like me, a way out of getting into crime, a way out of ending up in jail or getting into fights. It's like you were using your energy in this positive way, in this healthy way, in this creative way, and then experiencing yourself, and then making a name for yourself around the neighborhood.
Then in 2016, the case gets fresh eyes. Federal investigators step in under the belief that Jay's murder was connected to a drug deal.
In order for it to be a federal crime, it has to have some other nexus. Well, one of the nexuses is it was a murder committed in furtherance of a drug transaction.
The investigation is no longer a local police matter. It's now taken over by the EDNY, the Eastern District of New York.
Tens of thousands of people likely were wondering, how could they never solve this? You know, if that could happen to Jam Master Jay, a very famous person who everybody knows, if Jam Master Jay's murder could go unpunished, what expectation do I have of justice from me? We needed to respond. And we need people to have faith in the Justice Department. And we need perpetrators to know that the passage of time provides no escape or relief from you when you commit a crime of this nature. We will never give up.
Around the same time, a new tip comes in from Randy Allen.
Randy was in the studio that day, but he wasn't in the room when Jam Master Jay was killed. But what we do know is that Randy has a story to tell. He has some information that he needs to give the investigators.
Apparently, Randy Allen starts making phone calls. And one of the people he calls is Tony Rincon. And it's in 2016, I believe, that Tony Rincon tells Randy Allen that it was Carl Jordan who was the shooter. Carl Jordan was Jason Mizell's, or Jam Master Jay's, godson. There was no blood relation, but he was the godson of Jason Mizell, Jam Master Jay.
Carl Jordan Jr. He is the other assailant that was with Ronald Washington at the night when Jay was shot in the music studio.
Randy reports that he confirmed the ID with Lydia.
At about that same time, he calls his sister Lydia High, who also says that Carl Jordan was the shooter. Now, this is 15 years after the actual shooting takes place. And I believe he contacted the authorities. Carl was never pulled in and interviewed. He was not on their radar before that.
Federal investigators immediately contact Tony.
Tony talks to detectives also, and Tony verifies the story that Randy told the detectives earlier, that Carl is that second person that came into the studio that day and was our shooter.
He knew it was him. As soon as he seen him, he knew who Jordan Jr. was from the neighborhood. He knew it was Jay's godson. He knew exactly who he was.
He claimed that he was afraid of Carl Jordan, and now he was no longer afraid. He wanted to do the right thing.
A decade after the death of Jam Master Jay, witness Tony Rincon finally agrees to tell investigators what he saw in the 24/7 recording studio in October 2002.
His story changes. He says that he does know the identity of the two men who came into the studio that night. They were Ronald Washington and Jordan. Jordan was Jam Master Jay's godson, and Washington was a good friend of Jam Master Jay and had grew up in the neighborhood, so he recognized them immediately. He said that he didn't come forward because he was scared, but he finally decided to tell the truth because he just felt like Jam Master Jay's family deserved answers.
Many years over this investigation, detectives heard many people named and many people identified as the possible shooter, but they had never heard Carl's name. Carl is a new name that's come up in this investigation, so detectives know they have to look into this.
There wasn't a lot of evidence connecting Carl Jordan to the studio on October 30th, 2002. In fact, until 2017, there was no evidence connecting him to that studio that evening. There was nothing forensic, not a fingerprint, not a hair, no DNA, nothing that connected him to that studio that evening.
When police follow up with Lydia, she falls short of naming Jordan as the shooter.
The police went back and talked to Lydia High again. This time she says that Ronald Washington was the man who held her down at gunpoint. And then she also describes the gunman who shot Jam Master Jay. She says she had never seen him before, but that he was a light-skinned male with a neck tattoo.
Lydia did not know Carl, so she would not have recognized him the way she recognized Ronald, because Ronald was a childhood friend, so she had known Ronald for a long time. But she didn't know Carl. She saw the shooter and could tell us what he looked like. When she gave this description, it actually matched Carl.
After more than 10 years, the investigation takes a small step forward. But this time, there is one big difference.
Involvement of the federal government in Jam Master Jay's murder helped immensely. And the reason that it helps in these cases is because the government has more tools, more at their disposal to use.
Those prosecutors are able to go across state lines and look into all the leads that they have been hearing about Jam Master Jay's involvement in drug activity.
The federal government interviewed all the witnesses that NYPD had talked to, and also new witnesses that were brought forward.
Another witness, Zerubian Bastian, tells investigators that he was Jordan's roommate when the murders took place.
He tells the police that on 2 occasions at least, he's overheard him bragging about being the person who killed Jam Master Jay.
He said that at one point he overheard Jordan telling his girlfriend on the phone, "I'll do you like I did Jay." And on another occasion, they were in the car and he said that if Jay was still alive, he would kill him again.
That happens all the time with people. So many years have passed, so they probably felt that they're not going to catch us, they're not going to get us. So they just felt comfortable talking to other people about what they did. And sometimes it's bragging, letting people know, I'm the guy that killed Jam Master Jay. You don't want to mess with him. So people think it's a badge of honor sometimes.
Investigators comb through Jordan's criminal record, where they make another potential connection between Jordan and his Godfather shooting.
So in 2003, Jordan was arrested. During that time, he was searched and police recovered .40 caliber bullets and a .40 caliber pistol. When the .40 caliber bullets were examined, they realized that they were the exact same type of ammunition that was found at the crime scene where Jam Master Jay was killed.
The casings are the same primer type, font, texing, and spacing on the head stamp.
That didn't necessarily prove that he was the killer, but it did prove that at that time, he was in possession of the same exact type of ammunition.
So detectives now know that they have two suspects. They have Ronald Washington and Carl Jordan, but they don't have any evidence. We don't have proof yet to be able to charge these suspects with this murder.
Investigators go back to the blue hat found at the crime scene. With over a decade having passed since it was tested for DNA, they run it again.
They recover a blue hat at the crime scene that didn't belong to any of the witnesses. They're planning to do a DNA analysis and hope that it matches either Washington or Carl Jordan Jr.
Detectives figure out that if they can match the hat to either one of these suspects, then that could break their case wide open.
The other thing that happens is that with the passage of time, the perception of witnesses can change in a couple of important ways. You worry about memories fading over time, but you also may benefit from the maturity of witnesses over time and a diminished fear. The fear factor is important, but if you look at the history of the United States Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of New York, the office has a very proud and strong history of prosecuting the highest profile cases in the United States involving some of the most dangerous defendants. So the office comes with the credibility and institutional experience to know how to work with witnesses in a dangerous environment, facing potentially dangerous defendants.
Next Wednesday,
there's a young black man fighting for his life.
Over a decade after Jam Master Jay was gunned down, federal investigators retest a potentially key piece of evidence found at the scene.
There was this blue hat that was recovered near the body of Jam Master Jay. That hat was tested back in 2003 to see if there was DNA. And at that time, there was no positive match. But now detectives take a second look.
From 2002, more samples hit CODIS. And so there was a wider pool to analyze or to compare to. That's why they did it.
The federal government decided to retest the blue hat for DNA. And when they test that hat, they run the DNA sample through a database called CODIS. And when it runs through CODIS, they get a hit.
The test results come back. They find out that it wasn't a match to Ronald Washington or Carl Jordan Jr. It was a third suspect. The DNA came back to a third person that wasn't even on their radar.
So what you expect in an investigation is that you're going to have twists and turns. But what you don't expect is this huge plot twist. Now, who is this guy? And is he friends with Washington or Jordan? And what did he play in this murder?
As investigators try to understand the connection between Jordan, Washington, and the new suspect, they take a closer look at allegations Jay was involved in the drug trade.
When you're involved in the drug trade, it's a dangerous business. So there's got to be a need there. And usually that need is financially. Either you need money or you're really seeking that money at a whole nother level. So a logical step now is that we're going to have to look at Jay's financials.
They learned that Mizell was in deep financial trouble at the time of his death. He owed the IRS with penalties and interests that had built up over time.
He had took a lot of money and helped a lot of people and gave out money. A lot of these rappers, and even ball players, athletes do this. They give out money, buy houses and cars, and then they realize, oh, wow, that money went fast. You're supposed to be in a savings program. And these guys aren't in a 401k.
There are a lot of people who depended on Jason Mizell. According to the government, people depended on him financially, and he felt this pressure to provide, and that pressure led him to financial difficulties.
Jay had a family, his own family. He had 3 children, a wife, he has a sister. He has family which he considered his community, the Hollis Queens community. Any person or people or need that was out there, he was going to try his best to financially help that person or people. That's just what his spirit was. He was always a giving individual, so hands were always out for Jam Master Jay, and he wasn't shy to give, even if he didn't have it. He'll find a way to give it.
Did Jay turn to selling drugs to keep himself and everyone around him afloat?
Now you have to figure out what's the connection, why these suspects wanted to execute Jam Master Jay.
Police circled back to Ronald Washington because they were well aware of his drug activity. Everyone in the community knew about it.
Ronald Washington was in jail for a series of robberies. He did a bunch of commercial robberies, and the federal government already arrested him, and they charged him with those robberies. However, now, he was sentenced to certain years in jail, and his time was about to come up, where he was about to be released.
It's still not enough for an arrest, but investigators are ready to confront Washington in person.
On April 16, 2019, investigators interview Washington at a prison in Kentucky.
The federal investigators decide to go speak to Washington in prison. And when they speak to him, he starts off immediately saying, I think I might need a lawyer for this.
It's a weird thing to say. Either you're making a joke or you're implying your guilt, your involvement in this murder. But either way, you agreed to talk to police, so we're ready to listen.
He talks to them anyway. And what he talks to them about is that there was a drug deal, a big drug deal that Jam Master Jay was involved in with a dealer down in Maryland, and that Washington was a part of that drug deal.
Washington admits that he was in on a deal that Mizell was brokering to bring in 10 kilos of cocaine from California to Baltimore.
Washington also lets the investigators know that Jordan was also supposed to be a part of the drug deal.
Jay went out to get the 10 kilos and get them on consignment. Consignment is that you'll get the 10 kilos and then you'll pay us later. It's like product now and pay later. 10 kilos are probably something about $400, almost $500,000 of drug money. So that was a lot of money.
Federal investigators looking into the death of Jam Master Jay interview suspect Ronald Washington in prison.
He admits that 3 of them, including Jay, were involved in a drug deal. And the result of this drug deal would have brought them a lot of money at the end.
The reason that Washington and Jordan were working with Jam Master Jay was because they were close to him. Washington was his childhood friend, and they grew up together in the same neighborhood. So he knew Washington, and Jordan was his godson.
Ronald really didn't have a lot going for him, but Jay was determined to help him. And so Jam Master Jay and Ronald and 2 other individuals drove down to Baltimore to find a guy who ran the drug business in Baltimore and to get his permission to allow Ronald to distribute that cocaine in Baltimore on Jam Master Jay's behalf. Ronald insisted to Jay that this guy really hated him and they did not get along because of some prior incident, and that he didn't think it was a good idea for him to actually go face to face with the guy. And if Jay was able to work it out, then he would go meet him, but he really thought the guy hated him and he didn't think that they should meet. And so Jay agreed and he dropped Ronald off at a motel. And then Jay and his driver continued on to meet with this drug dealer who controlled Baltimore. And his reaction to Jay's request to allow Ronald to distribute drugs in Baltimore was, if I see him, I will kill him on sight. I don't want to ever see him in Baltimore.
The guy in Baltimore was like, you messing with him, Washington? Like, I don't want that guy pushing my drugs in the neighborhood. He's not a good person. I don't trust him, never did, never will. If he's not cut out, I'm not giving you anything. So Jam Master Jay had to deliver this news to his business partners.
Washington was out, so that meant Jordan was out also.
There was no way around it. Jam Master Jay didn't have the pull. He was only the middleman. That was his role.
Ronald wasn't upset with this. He knew that guy wasn't going to work with him, so they just went back to New York and they forgot about the drug deal.
But investigators believe Washington was more upset than he is letting on. In fact, they believe they may have just uncovered his motive.
You cannot be successful in the drug trade without being ruthless to a degree. Those social and legal boundaries are more easily crossed, unfortunately, than most people would expect. And that's why victims are often completely surprised, because they think to themselves, it's me. It's you and me. We know each other. We have a relationship. You've had dinner in my house, for example. You've met my family. How could you be doing this to me? And the response is a cold, hard truth, which is essentially, this is business. He felt that he'd been cut out of a deal, somehow cheated, and that was unacceptable to him and a message needed to be sent.
Jam Master Jay's murder was set up by Washington and Jordan as revenge for him cutting them out of the deal in Maryland.
4 years after taking over the case, federal prosecutors are confident enough to make a move.
On August 16, 2020, Carl Jordan Jr. is finally arrested at 36 years old. 56-year-old Ronald Washington, who is serving a prison sentence for a robbery, is also charged. Both men are charged with murder while narcotics trafficking. Carl Jordan Jr. is charged with additional counts of narcotics distribution.
They had to move fast because they didn't want to arrest Jordan and then have Washington be released. So they tied them both into the murder and indicted them both. Bingo, now they're remanded to jail. They're not going anywhere.
News of the arrests and the alleged motive is a mixed bag for Jay's family.
We were not friends. Growing up, I knew them. I have absolutely no clue on what the motive was for Jordan Jr. and Washington to kill my uncle. Because I don't know Jay to be a drug dealer, right? I don't know Jay to be involved with drugs. I don't know that.
So when you heard that, Jam Master Jay's death was attributed to anything drug-related, it was a shock. Knowing him personally, him being involved in anything drug-related was an absolute shock to me.
But the arrest resurfaced it all, back to the top, and it kind of got pushed back in my face like, this is the beginning of it. So really, it was just the beginning of the end.
As prosecutors prepare their case, the biggest weakness is in plain sight.
DNA was found at the crime scene from a third individual.
They knew that the defense counsel would use the DNA that was found in the blue hat to create reasonable doubt with the jury.
By February of 2024, prosecutors are finally ready to take Carl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington to trial for the 2002 shooting of Jason Mizell, aka Jam Master Jay.
It took the full 4 years to prepare for the trial. It was delayed because of motion practice. It was delayed because of COVID.
Both Washington and Jordan Jr. face up to life in prison. The death penalty was not presented for this case, which is an opportunity in the federal courts. But for here, the biggest and the largest sentence you could have for first-degree murder is life without the possibility of parole.
In their opening arguments, the prosecution lays out what they allege happened on October 30th, 2002.
The prosecution's theory in their opening statement was that Jason Mizell was part of a drug trafficking network between New York and Baltimore. That he brought Jordan and Ronald Washington into a deal in Baltimore and then out of the blue cut them out. And that was the motive for the shooting.
So, according to the prosecution, Jam Master Jay's murder was set up by Washington and Jordan as a revenge for him cutting them out of the deal in Maryland. They explained to the jury that they came to the studio that night together and that they went upstairs.
Jordan walked in, Jay stood up, Jordan screamed, and that's when he pulled out the .40 caliber gun and fired a single shot to Jay's head. Jay died instantly. A second shot struck Tony in the leg. Lydia, who was near feet away, ran to the door, but she was blocked by Washington, who pulled out a gun and ordered her to the ground.
Lydia High takes the stand.
Lydia High never specifically identified Carl Jordan. What she claimed she witnessed was that the shooter was a light-skinned black male with a neck tattoo.
She described Jordan's appearance. A light-skinned male, she described his tattoo, and then in addition, she explained for the jury that she knew Washington, that she recognized him that night when he came through the door because she had grown up with him in her neighborhood.
Her fear in the courtroom was palpable. I think it was evident to anybody that was there and witnessed her testify the trauma that she went through and how difficult it was for her to have to go back through and relive those events.
With Lydia's testimony, prosecutors addressed the presence of the third man whose DNA was found at the scene. They allege Lydia unknowingly let him in.
She testified at this trial that she had no idea who this was. He must have come in while the door was open and she was walking in.
They sent this third person into the building so that he could go into the back and open the fire escape to let Washington and Jordan in.
Tony Rincon also takes the stand.
Tony testifies that he knows both Washington and Jordan and identifies them in the court that day. He states that he saw Jordan walk over to Jay as if he was going to give him a pound or a handshake. And that was around the same time his mother was calling. He said that he heard the shot, he looked up, and he saw Jay fall.
So Tony testified that the shooter and the other suspect ran out the fire escape after shooting Jay. And this verifies the information that detectives have that there was a third person who allowed access to that fire escape for our suspects.
Tony Rincon and Lydia High both testified that the reason they didn't initially identify Carl Jordan as the shooter was because they were scared. And after 15 years or 16 years or 18 years or 20 years, they decided now was the time. They were no longer scared and they were going to do the right thing.
Randy Allen also takes the stand, recalling a version of events that stays true to what he told police back in 2002.
Randy Allen ran from the control room, saw his best friend on the floor bleeding from the head, took the gun, ran out the back door, I believe, the fire escape door, looking for the shooter or shooters, and then ran to the parking lot, which was about a block away.
Without Lydia High, without Randy Allen, and without Tony Rincon, the case can fall apart. Yeah, you could have one of them testify or maybe even two, but having all three, they don't have to wonder what did Lydia see or what did Randy see or what did the other people hear. They can hear from their mouth exactly what happened.
But will it be enough?
Well, the strengths of the prosecution case were the eyewitnesses, but their strengths in this case were also their weaknesses, because I thought these eyewitnesses were incredible. Other weaknesses were there were no forensics, no fingerprints, no DNA, no nothing to connect Carl Jordan to the crime scene. No statements by Carl Jordan to really connect him to this. There were a lot of more weaknesses, I believe, than strengths.
Carl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington are on trial for conspiring to kill Jam Master Jay in 2002. The defense takes aim at the alleged role of a third man whose DNA was found at the scene.
The government's theory changed as the case matured, and it went from two assailants, Carl Jordan, the shooter, and Ronald Washington with him, to a third person coming in through the front door and letting them in through the back door.
Ronald was there the day of the murder. He was there every day. Did he really need them to hire somebody to help him get in the back door that nobody saw?
It was the theory of Carl Jordan's defense team, and I believe Ronald Washington's defense team, that this third person was the actual shooter. He came in through the front door. He left his hat and his DNA at the crime scene. He matched the description provided by Lydia High, first description she gave as the shooter being 6 feet 2 inches tall.
The day of the shooting, Lydia gave a description of the shooter being tall. The problem in this case is that Jordan is not tall, but this third person is a tall individual.
The defense theory was that this third person who came in through the front door with Lydia High and left his DNA at the scene was the shooter. He left forensics at the shooting.
The defense hones in on the changes in Tony and Lydia's statements over time.
Now on cross-examination, I was able to take their handwritten statements and use them in cross and say, you know, the day or 2 days after this happened, didn't you say this and didn't you say that and didn't you have a different recollection? When it happened than you do, you know, when you testified last month, 20 years later. That's why we called the memory expert.
The defense called one witness to the stand. It was a memory expert who called into question whether Tony Rincon or Lydia High could remember exactly what happened 20 years ago.
It seemed to us that it was worth raising in the jurors' minds the notion that memory may be sharper at the time of an incident than it would be some 20 years later. People's memories are fresher 20 years earlier. And not just fresher, but more reliable. Because as you retell the story over time, you add a piece here and you add a piece there and you continuously add, you know, and then you don't know, in your own mind, you don't know what actually happened.
We challenged the government's narrative by saying the evidence is insufficient to establish guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That's how we challenged it. The jury deliberated several days. I never know what to expect during deliberations. What I expect never happens, so I stopped trying to have these unreasonable expectations.
In February of 2024, the federal jury deliberates, and they come back and they find Washington and Jordan Jr. guilty of the murder of Jam Master Jay.
Ronald was stunned by the verdict, and he was very upset by it. Lost it, and he screamed out.
And there was an outburst that the judge addressed very quickly. And she had made efforts by admonishing the defendants and also members of the gallery, the prosecutors, the people that had come to watch, members of the press, that she wanted there to be respect for the verdict, no matter what it was.
The date for Ronald Washington and Carl Jordan's sentencing is still to be set. For Jay's family and friends, the closure is bittersweet.
I went through 20 some odd years of suffering without Jay. 20 plus. My family, me, my mom, my mother, my grandmother, and my uncle Marvin, they all died without knowing what happened to Jay. So I don't have any sympathy for Jordan or Washington.
I wish he was still alive because Run DMC was a global phenomenon, and their reach was important because as they were performing, as they were sharing their creativity with people, they were also producing the blueprint of what hip-hop is. Rapper, DJ, that connection, that symbiotic relationship is important. It's integral to the music. Hearing Jam Master Jay scratch a sound was akin to watching someone perform magic.
Jay was alive right now, he would probably be producing my 5th album for sure. And Run DMC would still be touring, and he'd probably be on the road with me, because I would still be touring. We'd be enjoying life. I mean, life was good before he died. It would be great if he was still here.
You are, what's going on, where were you shot? Then he stops for a minute, and then he says, I love you and the kids, and to take care of the kids. He stopped responding.
Because of the trauma from the gunshot, most likely his lungs were filling with blood. The body's trying very hard, it's working overdrive. The lawyer reached out to the police and volunteered his client.
He can tell them exactly who committed the crime.
He was actually a primary target, the guy they really would like to have shot. The bad guys, they don't care. It's revenge, retaliation, revenge, retaliation.
October 19th, 2012, Syracuse, New York. It's just after 8 p.m. on the city's north side.
The Syracuse Police Department received 3 911 calls for a shooting.
Officers rush to the location where they find 2 victims.
They found one victim on the ground. And then they also found another person that had a minor, very minor injury from a gunshot wound that grazed his back, his upper back.
The man on the ground is struggling to breathe. Officers attempt first aid.
They didn't see obvious injury to him at that point. So what they did is they cut his shirt off, and then they spotted a small amount of blood. He was shot once in the left side near his armpit. Because of the trauma from the gunshot, most likely his lungs were filling with blood. The body's trying very hard, it's working overdrive to get air in. Just a minute or 2 after that, our ambulance crew arrived and was able to provide advanced medical care.
EMTs rushed the man to the hospital. The second victim identifies himself as 20-year-old Shavoki Bloodworth.
He was looked at by ambulance personnel on the scene and declined further treatment.
Shavoki tells police he doesn't know the other victim. At the hospital, the man fighting for his life is soon identified as 30-year-old Walter Bell, a resident of South Carolina. Walter Bell III was born on July 12, 1982, in Orangeburg, South Carolina. At a young age, Walter's parents separated, and he went to live with his mother in New York.
Walter was born in South Carolina, but spent most of his childhood and growing up in Long Island.
There, Walter was part of a large community of family and friends that included 2 brothers, 4 younger sisters, and his childhood best friend, Latia.
Everybody was just carefree, just running around having a good time. Causing destruction with the parents, you know, running the parents crazy.
Walter took care of his siblings.
Walter was the protector. He felt like he had to protect his sisters. The sisters got boyfriends and he had to interrogate them.
He's just like so family oriented. He cares about people and he put others before himself.
his teenage years, Walter's mom grew concerned that her son was headed down the wrong path.
Walter started getting into a little bit of the rougher lifestyle of Long Island, so his mom decided to send him back to South Carolina to live with his dad.
Orangeburg, South Carolina was a big change. But not too long after he moved, Walter welcomed a familiar face to town.
My family was gradually moving to South Carolina because there was land owned within the family. And so when we moved, I boo-hoo cried from New York to Virginia. And I was kind of relieved when I got closer to South Carolina because that phone rang and it was Walter calling me.
In South Carolina, Walter and Latia's lifelong friendship blossomed into a full-blown romance.
Walter was always there for her. She was always there for him. He was going to marry Tia.
Walter's home life was rocky. During their senior year of high school, Walter and Latia came to depend on each other like they never had before.
He had nowhere to stay, I had nowhere to stay due to, family issues. And we walked and walked and walked throughout the nights. We went up into a football field and slept in the announcer's box for weeks.
So it was like him and Tia was pretty much just living on the street.
The young lovers were on their own. Walter's sister-in-law tried to help.
Santana would sneak food and covers and blankets and pillows and things out of the window for us at night. And nobody knew we was outside that window but her.
In 2003, more trouble caught up with Walter.
Walter got into some things that he should not have. He was accused of breaking into homes and stealing things.
21-year-old Walter was arrested and charged with second-degree burglary. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 15 years in prison.
I cried and I cried and I cried. And we were allowed to spend some time together afterwards, back by the holding cells. And Walter looked at me and said, the only thing I want you to do is live your life to whatever makes you happy. Just make sure that when I come home, I have a place to come home to.
When he was in prison, it was never a time that he didn't write, he didn't call, he always kept in contact, always.
There was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of me trying to find myself, a lot of me trying to rebuild myself back up.
In October 2010, after almost 7 years behind bars, Walter was granted parole. By then, Latia was a single mother to 3 young kids. Walter and Latia picked up where they left off.
When he came home, he loved her kids. He took all of her kids in they was his kids.
When he started bonding with the kids is when it was just okay, well, it is what it is, we can't change it.
The childhood sweethearts settled into life together, with Walter taking on the role of stepdad. By the summer of 2012, they had plans to marry. But first, they needed a fresh start.
He was unable to find work because of his record. He was just trying and just staying focused and not going back on the prior ways that he was doing, the things he was doing before he went to jail. He was trying to make a way and work, actually work.
And then Walter hears about an opportunity back in New York.
Walter's cousin offered to help him get a job at a recycling center in Syracuse.
I said, well, I don't know. I really don't want to go back to New York. And he looked me in my eyes and he said, Tia, I'll ride with you no matter what. Whatever decisions you make, I ride with you on it. I want you to ride with me on this. That Friday, we packed up 3 laundry bags of clothes and shoes, packed the kids up, and got on the Greyhound.
The couple stayed with friends and in hotels until they could find a place of their own. Around the same time, Latia delivered news that there was more change to come.
I said, Walter, and I showed him the pregnancy test. He was like, are you serious? He was so happy. I mean, within 5 minutes, he had done called his mom. He had done called his oldest sister. He called his god sister. He was just so happy.
He was so excited that he was about to be a dad. Like, nobody could take that moment from him. Like, that moment means the world.
Just 6 weeks after arriving in Syracuse, Walter Bell is fighting for his life at a hospital following a life-threatening gunshot wound. Another man, Shavoki Bloodworth, was grazed by a bullet in the same attack. He is still on the scene.
He voluntarily gave part of his story as to what happened, as to how he saw the incident unfold.
Which isn't much.
Mr. Bloodworth was saying he didn't know the man, Mr. Bell in this case, and that he was just an innocent bystander, didn't know anything, just heard some gunshots and felt something hit his back.
Investigators search for evidence. They recover 2 .25 caliber shell casings.
The other thing you want to immediately do is start to canvass the area, especially for cameras. And then you want to find anybody that's close by that may have observed what happened. One of the people that called 911, her and her daughter got a good look at 2 males that walked past their house.
They described them as wearing dark clothing.
They saw 2 black men in their 20s approach the victim. A few minutes later, shots rung out.
And then they saw them go past back by their house, go back to a vehicle they described as a white SUV that then left the scene. They didn't see them with a gun. They didn't see them actually shoot anybody. They just saw them apparently going to the crime scene and then leaving the crime scene.
Police put out an APB with the descriptions. Then, less than an hour after the initial 911 calls, detectives get an update on Walter's condition.
His bleeding was internal, so there wasn't much that they could do. Walter was pronounced dead at the Upstate University Hospital.
Now, they have a homicide investigation on their hands.
The late hours of October 19th, 2012, police in Syracuse, New York, are investigating a shooting when they learn that one of the victims, 30-year-old Walter Bell, did not survive. Detectives go to the hospital where doctors have recovered the bullet from Walter's body.
It was a small .25 caliber, consistent with the 2 shell casings that were found up the street.
Hospital staff tell detectives that the victim's fiancée, Latia Walker, is on the phone. She has just been informed of the shooting.
The detective asked me what my name was, where did I live, how soon could I get to the hospital? And I said to him, I don't even know where, I don't know where anything is. I've only been in town for 6 weeks. I would have to figure out how I'm getting there. And I told him I had my kids.
Detectives agreed to meet Latia at the hotel where she and Walter have been staying since arriving in town.
They showed up, they knocked on the door, and one of them asked me to step outside with him. The other one stayed inside with the kids. And he told me that Walter didn't make it. At that point, I lost all hope for everything. Everything.
Latia explains that earlier in the evening, she and Walter had been at the hotel when he received a phone call.
It was his cousin calling and saying, he wanted to spend some time with him and things of that nature. So Walter decided to go with him. Walter left the motel probably around 4:30, 5 o'clock. Anytime Walter goes anywhere, when he gets to where he's going, he always called me to let me know he made it to where he was going okay. So I called Walter about 6:45, 7 o'clock. He's like, yeah, I'm all right. I just, I lost track of time. I forgot to call you, my bad. And he's like, but I'm gonna call you before I come home because I wanna know what you need from the store. So I said, okay. Around 7:55, he called me. Automatically, I'm thinking he's in the grocery store. Let me tell him what I want. So I'm like, yeah, I want some strawberries and I want some bananas and make sure you get some cereal for the kids for in the morning. And he's like, Tia, stop. I said, well, what? Tia, I've been shot. He sounded okay, and I thought he was playing with me.
For about a whole minute of that phone call, she believes he's joking.
He says, no, I've really been shot. And then he's paused. His whole demeanor, everything changed. He paused, and now I'm taking him seriously because now I could tell something is wrong. And so I started going into questions. Where are you at? Tell me where you are. What's going on? Where were you shot? You know, I'm asking 1,000,001 questions, and the only thing he's saying is that he couldn't breathe. You know, I can't breathe. Oh my God, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Then he stops for a minute, and then he says, I love you and the kids, and to take care of the kids. He stopped responding. We've always had the relationship of getting to one another when we needed to. And I couldn't get to him. I didn't know where he was.
Desperate and unsure what to do, Latia started calling local hospitals.
The only thing that could go through my head was, what am I gonna do now? Well, I'm here by myself. I got my kids. How am I gonna tell these kids?
Police ask Latia if she knows anyone who might have been after Walter.
They want to know exactly what could have caused this homicide, if he had any enemies or any known people in the area that would want to harm him. Latia makes them aware that they had literally just moved.
He had just really come here from South Carolina with his family, and then before that was from Long Island.
The only information Latia has is that Walter had been with his cousin in the hours before he died.
I thought he had gotten into it with somebody. That's the only, explanation that I could have come up with.
She gives the address where Walter's cousin lives, just a block away. Investigators hope that he can shed light on what went down in Walter's final hours.
At this point, detectives have more questions than answers.
It's really about talking to people.
Well, we just want to go to New York together and see how, like this work out. So it's like this was an opportunity for them both to start a new life. I just had this feeling about him in New York. Tia called me on that night, and she was just crying, screaming, yelling, I'm like, Tia, what's wrong? Like, calm down, what's wrong? She finally got it together. She said, Walter been shot. It was hard. It was very hard, especially she was in New York at the time and I was in South Carolina. I just feel like it was the worst night of my life.
After the fatal shooting of Walter Bell, Syracuse detectives head to the residence where Walter's cousin lives with friends. Police learn they had welcomed Walter when he arrived in Syracuse.
Mr. Bell had lived with them when he first moved up from South Carolina. They were very cooperative.
The group tells police that Walter was still learning the nuances of street politics on the North Side. In fact, they said Walter made a near-fatal blunder a couple days before by walking on Catherine Street, the same street where he ultimately lost his life.
They told us that he had been shot at just a couple days before that, less than half a block from the incident. And his friends that they lived with on Lodi Street, which is right around the corner, warned him and kept telling him, hey, you shouldn't hang out over there.
Investigators consider whether Walter was unknowingly caught up in a neighborhood feud.
Mr. Bell may not have been a direct target.
They don't know if the target was Walter Bell or if it was Shavoki Bloodworth.
Detectives asked the group what they know about the other shooting victim. They say that despite what he told police at the scene, Walter and Shavoki did know each other.
Mr. Bloodworth and Mr. Bell were known as friends. They would often hang out together.
Investigators questioned why he would hold back.
Now, investigators want to talk to Shavoki Bloodworth to see exactly what he knows.
Before they do, one of Walter's friends offers information about a man he says is at the center of the neighborhood feud.
We heard the name of Mr. Acevedo from the friends of Mr. Bell. All he knew by his nickname, so he accompanied the police in an unmarked vehicle and pointed out the house that it turns out to be Mr. Acevedo's house.
Unfortunately, he isn't home. Investigators shift their focus back to Shavoki Bloodworth and conduct a background search.
Mr. Bloodworth had been involved in the criminal justice system. He had been arrested for dealing drugs. There was some robbery, type street robbery thing. There was probably a dispute that turned bad. So he had been around, he had been in the game, as we'll say.
In the early morning hours of October 20th, Shavoki Bloodworth agrees to come to the station for another interview. At first, Shavoki maintains his story, saying he didn't know Walter Bell or anything about the shooters.
The detective, as he was talking to him, and this is over a course of a few hours, finally told him, he said, listen, you know, the guy that you were standing there next to, he did pass away. And Mr. Bloodworth actually became emotional over this and broke down in tears. Mr. Bloodworth told the detective that, he goes, okay, he is a friend of mine. I see him every day. And he actually even said that he felt he was a father figure to him. So then he gave a little bit more information.
Shavoki admits he has been involved in the feud and fears that he was the intended target of the shooting, not Walter.
But that's oftentimes how it works. The bad guys, they don't care. They'll take collateral damage. And oftentimes it's revenge, retaliation, revenge, retaliation.
Shavoki still says he didn't see who fired the shots, but thinks there could be a clue in Walter's dying words.
Mr. Bloodworth even tells the detective that our victim, Mr. Bell, says, look out for streets, as he's dying.
Detectives recognize the nickname.
John Lundy was on parole and had just gotten out of state prison.
26-year-old Drawn is often spotted around town with his brother, 21-year-old Quincy.
Quincy and John Lundy were known to the police. They had been involved in the criminal justice system, being arrested on numerous different occasions for a variety of crimes.
That sets off a bunch of bells in the detective's head, because those brothers have a long rap sheet in the area.
Within hours of the fatal shooting of Walter Bell, investigators have the names of two men who may have been involved.
John Lundy actually had just gotten out of prison. Quincy, who's the younger brother, also has multiple arrests in the area for misdemeanors and felonies, and was also shot himself back in 2009.
Before they reach out to the brothers, investigators attempt to track down the man Walter's friends said was at the center of a neighborhood feud, 20-year-old Jason Acevedo.
Mr. Acevedo was attempted to be located a few different times. Once they finally locate him, he was very uncooperative and denied knowing anything.
Detectives refuse to give up. They continue to press Acevedo for information.
It's almost a lost art, is that one-on-one communication and trying to win over people, get them to give you information. Really is an art form. And, you know, those are the detectives that are the better detectives are people that know how to do that and actually can spend that time necessary to build a relationship.
Eventually, Jason admits to a feud between himself and the Lundy brothers.
He actually gives some of the story, the backstory too, of him being involved in physical altercations with Quincy Lundy, of actual physical fights that occurred in the street in the weeks leading up to the death of Mr. Bell.
Following the interview, investigators begin piecing together the puzzle. In the months prior, the Lundy family had filed a police report.
The Lundy's parents called in that their house was shot up. The police respond, police do a report, they look for shell casings, do what they can to investigate the crime.
No one was charged. But now, investigators consider whether Jason Acevedo was responsible.
He described the fight that he had with Mr. Lundy. He kind of got the worst of it. So that probably is what led to the shootings up of the homes of the Lundy brothers.
The belief that Acevedo was responsible left the Lundy brothers thirsty for revenge.
Their house was shot up in the months leading up to Mr. Bell's death. So they were probably going to exact revenge.
Investigators are still unsure how Walter and Shavoki got caught in the crossfire. They return to the eyewitnesses who described seeing two men flee from the scene of Walter's shooting. Investigators present them with a photo array containing mugshots of Drawn and Quincy Lundy.
They have a really good witness who identifies them, which is pretty powerful because she doesn't know them, was able to quickly point them out of a photo array. Not enough to arrest them, but then everything kept coming back to them.
Detectives reach out to the brothers, who agree to come in for a statement.
Both Lundy brothers voluntarily came in. They didn't arrive together, as I recall, but they were interviewed the same day. They didn't admit to doing this crime, but they admitted that Quincy Lundy was involved in fights with other people that hang out in their area, including Mr. Acevedo.
Quincy says he was not there. He was at home with his mom watching television. Drawn says he's nowhere near Catherine Street during the shooting. He wasn't even on the north side. And that was something that could be easily verified at that time because he had on an ankle bracelet.
Drawn was released from New York State Prison 11 months earlier with a GPS tracking device as a condition of his probation.
The detectives spoke with parole officials. They had said that Mr. Lundy was nowhere near Catherine Street at the time of this incident.
Now they have an eyewitness on scene saying that it was the Lundy brothers, which is a complete contradiction from what they found out from the ankle monitor.
Investigators consider an alternative theory.
They're looking as, okay, so maybe Drawn wasn't there. It was Quincy there with someone else, right?
But Quincy's mom backs up his alibi, stating her son was with her on the night Walter was killed.
Now, mom, sometimes, they could be looking out for their kid, right? So we'll take that with a grain of salt, but the mom seemed earnest enough when she was interviewed and pretty certain. So the detectives were kind of back to square one.
The investigation stalls. Walter's loved ones are left in the lurch. Grieving, pregnant, and alone, Latia lives in fear.
Everybody's worried about me now because I'm in a place where I don't know anyone. I don't have any support. I left Syracuse within 24 hours of Walter passing. And I moved back to Long Island. I stopped speaking to detectives. Reason being, I started getting calls on my personal phone, and it would be people portraying to be detectives. And so now I didn't trust anyone. And I still didn't quite know the story of what happened, so I'm scared. I don't trust anyone, and I felt like they were trying to figure out where I had moved to. And I didn't want anyone to know where I was.
A lot of times, the violent crime in Syracuse and many other cities is oftentimes a retaliatory act for a previous event. It's the street code, the street justice. It's why actually now, across the country, police agencies now are starting to change. This is a big trend in law enforcement to try to put more resources now into your garden variety shootings. Because oftentimes, a person who gets shot last week and is treated and released, if you will, from the hospital, 1 week later is shooting back at the people who shot him or had already done so. So it's a retaliatory act, and you're trying to interrupt. The police now are trying to really aggressively interrupt that method. So that's a trend, and I think it's a good one.
Following the murder of Walter Bell, his friends and family members are overwhelmed by the loss. 3 months after his death, Walter's daughter is born.
I gave birth January 29th, 2013. And she was born prematurely. She was born at 28 weeks. When I looked at my baby, I looked at her and I broke down and cried. Reason being, the first thing that I saw when I looked at her, she looked just like her dad did, laying in the casket.
He always talk about when I have a little girl, her name's gonna be Destiny Nicole Bell. All the time, he just wanted a little girl. He got what he finally wanted, and he's not here for it.
Adding to the family's pain, the investigation into Walter's murder is at a standstill. His killer, or killers, are still out there. In the summer of 2013, almost 9 months after the shootings, Jason Acevedo is arrested in connection with a string of burglaries. But Jason has another crime on his mind.
Mr. Acevedo, with his conjunction with his lawyer, thought it might be in his best interest to now cooperate in this case to give a more satisfactory resolution to his pending felonies. So his lawyer reached out to the police in the district attorney's office and volunteered his client to cooperate.
Jason reveals that he was there when Walter Bell was shot and can tell them exactly who committed the crime.
Prosecutors make a deal, offering Jason Acevedo a reduced sentence in exchange for testimony.
Jason reveals that on October 19, 2012, he was standing on the sidewalk talking to Walter Bell and Shavoki Bloodworth when he was approached by the Lundy brothers. And it was at that point, shots rang out.
Acevedo says both Lundy brothers pulled out guns and started firing at him, Walter, and their friend, Shavoki Bloodworth.
It appears from the investigation Mr. Acevedo was actually a primary target. That's probably the guy they really would like to have shot that night.
But Jason escaped unscathed. He fled the scene and didn't know Walter had been killed until he saw it on the news 2 weeks later.
His background, if you will, his basis of knowledge that he finally comes through with is pretty high. And so, his credibility, though he's looking out for his own best interest, his credibility in this case is good.
But his statement goes against what would appear to be irrefutable evidence. The data from Drawn Lundy's ankle bracelet.
So that's when they would go back to the ankle monitor and actually start to look at it more closely. In Onondaga County, we have a crime analysis center. One of the analysts there, they were able to look at it more scientifically, and that's when they realized that that the first parole officer looked at it and misread it, or possibly wasn't looking at the actual time that the detective gave him. All of a sudden, okay, boom.
Drawn, in fact, was on Catherine Street that night. At that point, detectives immediately issue a warrant for Drawn Lundy's arrest for the second-degree murder of Walter Bell.
Based on Jason Acevedo's statement, authorities also issue an arrest warrant for Quincy Lundy. He turns himself in.
He was re-interviewed, but didn't give a lot of information. He was arrested for murder in the second degree.
Drawn Lundy remains at large.
They asked the family for Drawn to call them. They had said, well, he's in Texas somewhere. He actually does call the detectives within a day or two and actually left an address that he lived in. But the address was was a fraudulent one. So the U.S. Marshals Task Force in that area started to knock on doors and see if they could find Mr. Lundy.
Syracuse police finally have enough to charge the two men they believe are responsible.
A warrant is issued for the Lundy brothers' arrests. Quincy is first arrested, but then they discover Drawn Lundy flees to Texas.
Investigators do what they can to flush him out, including enlisting the help of the U.S. Marshals and putting pressure on his family.
The police up here in Syracuse still knocking on grandma's and parents' doors. Those efforts must have been enough. Mr. Lundy actually, within a few days thereafter, walks in and turns himself in to a police department down outside of Dallas, Texas. And then he's arrested and later extradited back here to face the charges.
When they finally get Drawn Lundy in custody, he's sticking to the story that he was not anywhere near Catherine Street and that he only heard about the gunshots. But police knew there was more to the story.
Drawn and Quincy Lundy are tried together in October 2014. Latia attends the trial with Walter's mother.
I want to look these guys in their face. I want to know what happened and why it happened.
Deputy Mark Chapman is assigned to transport the brothers to and from court each day.
My partner and I were present throughout the whole trial because of the brothers' custody status. They looked like, college students. They were very quiet, very disciplined in the courtroom.
Quincy Lundy's attorney sticks to the story that Quincy has nothing to do with this shooting and he was at home with his mother. And his mother continues to corroborate the story. She takes the stand to testify for him, but Quincy himself doesn't take the stand. Drawn, on the other hand, takes the stand in his own defense. He admits to the criminal history and admits to the feud with Acevedo, but is adamant about the fact that he had nothing to do with the shooting and did not shoot anyone.
This case was, somewhat circumstantial. We didn't have a murder weapon. They didn't have fingerprint evidence. They didn't have DNA evidence. There wasn't, clear, perfect video. There wasn't a confession. I pictured myself as a juror saying, this could go either way.
Prosecutors attempt to bolster their case by calling the county medical examiner.
Dr. Stoppinger's testimony, they have ways to follow the bullet path as it enters and potentially exits the body. The doctor testified that it appeared that the rounds striking Mr. Bell came from a downward angle. After his testimony, the court took a brief recess. We escorted both brothers from the courtroom to a holding area adjacent to the courtroom and secured them in a holding cell.
Officer Chapman and his partner listen in as the brothers discuss the testimony.
Quincy Lundy said, this doctor is very good for us, for our case. And they then went on to say that it's good for us because we were shooting from up the hill. My partner and I, we look at each other in kind of disbelief. We're like, they basically just confessed to each other that they were shooting.
When the trial resumes, the deputies tell prosecutors what they overheard.
I was hesitant, you know, but law enforcement, we have to adapt. And we did. We testified to exactly what we heard that day.
On October 24th, 2014, the jury returns its verdict.
They were both found guilty of murder in the second degree in Honda County Court and were sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. It wasn't just justice for Walter Bell and his family. It was an effort to stop the violence, right? We're always looking to try to stop the violence because this would have kept going.
When the verdict came in, I got a call from Tia. I was happy, but I said, still don't take away the pain because, I mean, it's no sin it's gonna amount to the amount of pain that they caused us. I guess you just have to learn to deal. You just learn to deal with it.
That verdict just basically told me to get on with life. Get on with your life. Today, I'm a mother of 5. I'm married now. I'm happy. My happy ending is my babies. Finding someone that accepted me and my babies. To raise them. Destiny has never met or talked to her father.
She has his ways. Like, you can just look in her eyes and you just know that he's there. He's there.
Life, I feel like you should spend the rest of yours behind bars.
They observe him, walk up behind him, and shoot him once in the head. And he did this motion to them as he walked past, as if to suggest, shh.
This reeked of revenge. How do you walk past the site where your brother was murdered? How do you move on from something that is in your face every single day?
He told Saquon, whenever I see you, I'm just gonna handle the situation.
My grandmother used to always say, you try to dig a ditch for someone else that you're gonna fall in.
July 2nd, 2016, in the sprawling suburbs of Northern Virginia. After a late night out, 22-year-old Kentrice Hall is getting ready for bed when she's interrupted by a terrifying call.
I literally just took my dress off and laid in the bed. I was so tired. I was on the phone, and I keep getting this call from this guy. I know he likes me, and he's from, you know, uptown. And I'm like, what did he want? So I finally answered the phone, maybe the third call, and he's like, your brother, he just got shot. I'm like, what? Like, I immediately jumped up, and I'm telling my mom, like, get the F up. Like, Saquon has been shot. We have to go now.
When Kentrice told me that, I just freaked out. You know, it was like one of my worst fears coming to fruition. I don't change clothes or anything. We both get in the car and we're on our way.
The pair head to the place where the shooting occurred.
I did maybe 80 all the way down the street. I put the hazards on, so I was able to fly.
Kentrice's brother, 23-year-old Saquon Hall, has gotten into his share of trouble before. But this time, it feels different.
When I get there, the whole street is lit up. A lot of people standing outside. There's paramedics.
And I'm running up the street saying, where's my son? He wasn't in the ambulance. They were, I think, putting him on the stretcher. But everything seemed like it was in slow motion. I'm praying, I'm hollering, Spawn, hold on.
Saquon Hall was born on November 7th, 1992. And he and his 4 siblings grew up in a low-income Northern Virginia neighborhood.
The 3 oldest boys are actually 5 years apart. And then there was Saquon.
Me and Saquon are very close in age. You couldn't tell if we weren't twins growing up. My mom would buy us 2 of the same shoes, just different sizes. He was always the person in the grade before me, so everyone knew that I was coming.
He was always cutting up in school. You know, he was just a class clown. Everybody loved him. You know, he was a good guy.
Saquon's aunts and uncles lived on the same block, so he was always surrounded by family. But Saquon had a special relationship with his father.
He liked to play football a lot, and Saquon's dad was his football coach. Saquon was a really good player, very fast, light on his feet.
When his father died, Saquon was only 8 years old. It turned his entire world upside down.
Once his dad died, it was just like, no more football. Like, he would watch the Cowboys, of course, but he didn't want to play anymore.
It's very difficult when children lose a parent. Very difficult. And for Saquon, he didn't have a strong male role model in his life.
As he grew older, Saquon became his own role model, taking care of his mother and sister, as well as his close friends.
He was very much outspoken. He let you know, if there was any injustice or wrong, he would say it.
You come to him with a problem, he made it his problem. One time, I think I was in the 6th grade, Saquon was in the 7th grade, and we were walking across our middle school football field to get to my mom's job, and all of a sudden, you see Saquon spring and like body slammed by a police officer, and Saquon being the person that he is, like he ran over there, to like defuse the situation. They started to, of course, body slam Saquon as well. And I'm standing there looking like, what? I'm just like screaming. They took him down to the police station and all that. And that was Saquon's very first, incident with the law.
As a result, Saquon's mother decided to relocate the family to a different area of town.
My mom was like, I'm done with it. We're moving from the projects, we're moving to the west side, and it's going to be a better life for everyone.
But for Saquon, it was hard adjusting to a new neighborhood.
The first 2 or 3 months, he was catching the bus and would be gone all day in our old neighborhood.
I would have to go looking for him to find out where he was. I just didn't like the crowd that he was hanging with.
Saquon began spending more and more time on the streets. To keep him out of trouble, his mother encouraged him to volunteer at a local soup kitchen.
I'm a minister, and I was an advocate helping those in public housing. My children were always there with me to help me clean up. I tried to raise my kids with how to be proactive, and just love everybody.
But it was a high school classmate who finally got Saquon to settle down. Her name was Takia Johnson. And not long after graduation, she and Saquon had a child together.
He was 19 or 20 when the kids came. Well, when the first child came, which was a girl. Loved her.
Things started to definitely change. Everything was about Skylar and this and Skylar that. I know that definitely brought a different side to him. And then slowly after that, Imari came, and then it was like a dad of 2, and it was just like, what are you going to do?
Then, in 2015, Saquon's turn at fatherhood nearly came to an end when he was shot for the first time.
I remember it's kind of cold, late at night, and we got a call saying that he was shot. So we, of course, immediately ran to the hospital. And there was detectives there trying to hound him to see who shot him.
He wouldn't say a word. He wouldn't say anything. I figured he was trying to honor the street code.
Saquon's loved ones hoped the brush with death would slow him down. In the weeks since the shooting, Saquon was focusing on his family and talked about going back to school to become an HVAC repairman.
I could tell he wanted to be like a fun dad. All of that long nights going out and stuff like that, he definitely changed.
But now, a second shooting has left Saquon fighting for his life. And his mother finds herself praying, once again, for his recovery.
As they were taking Saquon to the hospital, she rode in the back. And the whole time that she was riding with him, she was thinking, you know, maybe this is just another minor shooting. Maybe he'll get through this.
As the ambulance speeds away, police begin their investigation.
Crime scene investigators responded, of course, and processed the crime scene. They found multiple shell casings, I believe 16 shell casings, all of which were from a 9mm.
There were shell casings found up and down First Street. You can see that the shooter was not standing in the same place while he was shooting.
Police recovered 2 revolvers nearby. Neither of them matches the 9mm shell casings at the scene, due to one clear explanation.
The semi-automatic weapon will kick out the shell casings. When you fire a revolver, the shell casing remains in the gun.
It was unclear to us if those weapons were ever discharged that night.
To a detective, it says that there were other guns on the scene. It could have been somebody else. It could have been the shooter having more than one gun. Who had it? Who was shooting is what the investigation reveals.
As 23-year-old Saquon Hall is rushed to a Northern Virginia hospital in critical condition, investigators question witnesses at the scene. His sister, Kentrice Hall, tells detectives they'd spent the night hosting an event together.
The night of July 1st, we had a big party. We had like a celebrity guest come. Me, Saquon, and a bunch of our friends worked very hard selling tickets for the event. But that night, it was like really weird. He was very standoffish. You could tell that he was like watching what was going on around him, or like he just wasn't there.
The party ended around midnight, and Kentrice headed home. But Saquon wasn't quite ready to call it a night.
Saquon had said he was going, with his friends. So they went uptown to the projects where one of his friends lived.
They all returned to someone's house to kind of continue hanging out. There was a large group of people who went back there.
According to Saquon's friends, the attack took place shortly after they got to the house. They'd had a few drinks when Saquon suddenly decided to leave with 2 young women.
At some point there, he left the residence where he was with 2 individuals in a car, drove a short way away. He gets out of the car. The 2 female individuals remained in the car. Shortly thereafter, there was a lot of gunfire.
The women say they saw Saquon running back toward the car seconds later.
Saquon was trying to escape from somebody who was pursuing him, and then one shot hit him and he fell to the ground. While he was down on the ground, the person pursuing him came up from behind and shot him again.
He was shot twice. He was shot in the back and in the back of the head.
When police ask for a description of the shooter, the witnesses become reluctant to talk.
Neither of these individuals had like a lengthy history with Saquon or deep connections to him. I kind of think they were just girls he was hanging out with. They'd all been out at the club that night.
All of these young people had this snitches bring stitches. We don't rat on anyone, that type thing.
Investigators will need to find another way to identify a suspect. Luckily, the weapons found near the scene provide a potential lead.
The guns that were recovered had serial numbers, and they were researched to find out that Edna Conti had purchased these guns.
Edna Conte is a 22-year-old resident of the Northern Virginia area. And as police quickly discover, she has bought a total of 8 guns in the past 2 months.
A 22-year-old needing 8 guns? Who is this?
Investigators immediately contact Edna, who claims there's a perfectly innocent explanation.
Edna Conti said that she had purchased these 8 guns because she was getting death threats from her boyfriend. And she relayed that she was starting to have suicidal thoughts, so she was going to get rid of the guns. And on the way to get rid of the guns, the car broke down, was towed to the shop, and the guns were subsequently stolen.
But detectives aren't buying it.
There are many lies in homicide investigations, and this was one of them. It appeared that Edna Conti was buying these guns for other people to be put out on the street, making what they call a straw purchase of firearms.
The question is, who wound up with the guns? As police search for answers, Saquon's loved ones gather at the hospital for news of his condition.
I wanted more than anything for my baby to live. I didn't want it to be serious, but it was. You know, the doctors were working on him. They wouldn't let me see him.
Unfortunately, his wounds proved to be too severe.
I don't know if he was bleeding out. They really never gave us too much information on that, but all I know is when they came to us and told him that his time had expired, my mom just like fell out, like in the middle of the floor, body collapsed.
My thoughts and emotions were all over the place. I was devastated. I was in shock.
I couldn't believe it. We all just standing there like he was just here. Like we was just talking to him. We were in the club having a good time.
For police, it means the case has now become a murder investigation.
Edna Conti was arrested on federal gun charges. When it came to the homicide, we discuss tactics and how to move forward and what the next step is. When somebody's moving guns, particularly when they are found on the street, it looks like somebody's making what they call a straw purchase of firearms. A straw purchase is a term used when somebody buys guns for somebody who is not otherwise eligible to purchase a gun. Either they have mental health issues, they have criminal history that prohibits purchasing a gun, or they just don't want their name on it.
This was a nationwide trend, but also in that area, there was an uptick in shootings. If you look around this community, a lot of these are small disagreements that blow out of proportion, that they get bigger, it gets out of control, and it turns deadly.
Detectives investigating the murder of 23-year-old Saquon Hall have little to go on. So far, their best leads are the 2 guns found near the scene. Since the weapons weren't used in the shooting, police theorize Saquon was the one carrying them. He just didn't get a chance to shoot back.
In any homicide case, the question of motive is something that we think about. There was some indication that they could have been an ambush.
A background check reveals Saquon has a history of getting into trouble. He's been in jail on several different charges, and his name pops up in connection with another homicide.
Pierre Clark was killed about a month before Saquon was killed.
Pierre was very well liked in the community. He had a lot of friends. You know, he was a fixture there.
A lot of people that knew Pierre Clark said that he was a snappy dresser. He always was paying attention to how he looked. And the people in his family said that beyond this big showboat, beyond this big showy personality, Pierre Clark was somebody that really cared for his family.
Like Saquon, 28-year-old Pierre Clark was also trying to overcome a checkered past.
He had had some substance abuse issues, and he was just one of those folks that he was known to the police because of this, but he would kind of float in and out of the legal system.
He'd been going to treatment and recovering from that, and had a lot of hopes and dreams to kind of turn his life around and make things better, not just for him, but for his family.
But on the morning of June 8, 2016, Pierre was gunned down outside a public housing complex.
A lot of shootings tend to happen, in the mornings or in the evenings. This one was unusual because it happened in broad daylight.
I was already assigned to Pierre's homicide, but at that point, nobody had been arrested or charged.
Within a few days, however, a familiar name emerged.
It's on the police, the detectives, to do the investigation and to get the evidence necessary. But Saquon was the primary suspect in Pierre's murder.
There was video of Saquon leaving the area. I had informants telling me that he was responsible for it, informants that would testify, informants that would not testify.
Yet his loved ones insisted he was innocent of the shooting of Pierre.
I called him, I'm like, Saquon, like, where are you? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm at work, I'm here, like, hearing things that you might have did something. He's like, oh, I'm with Takia and the kids, we're at Funland. And I'm like, okay. Like, whew, there's no way Saquon could have did it. Funland's like an hour and a half away from here.
Investigators still needed to talk to him, however, not just to question him about Pierre Clark's murder, but to protect him, too.
I remember telling Patrice, look, they are saying Saquon did this homicide. They're saying Saquon killed Pierre Clark. We need to find Saquon before somebody else does. Even with the people that would talk, there were a lot of people that wouldn't. They want to handle it themselves. They wanted street justice.
Saquon's mother ultimately convinced him to participate in the investigation. But his answers to detectives' questions only increased their suspicions.
He was showing me his cell phone saying I wasn't there, and I grabbed his cell phone and did a search warrant. He had said that he was going to see his mom, who worked at a community center in the area, and that didn't match up with the story.
Saquon had told his mother he was at an amusement park at the time of the shooting, not at the community center. The inconsistencies make police even more suspicious.
So I was building the case against Saquon. He was the only suspect.
But before charges could be brought against Saquon, he was murdered. To detectives investigating Saquon's death, the shooting looks like payback for the shooting of Pierre Clark. But Saquon's family still believes he is innocent.
Another mother that I'm close with, she calls me and she said, Miss Patrice, she said, I need to tell you something. And I said, what is it, sweetie? This friend tells me that she witnessed the murder of Pierre. She said, Miss Patrice, it was not your son. She said, because the guy that I saw shoot him was tall. And she also said that he had, there was another guy with him.
In the wake of her son Saquon's death, Patrice Hall turns her outrage into activism.
The murder of Pierre Clark was the third murder that year in that same area. There were a few community meetings that the police hosted in the nearby community center where she and several other mothers in the community were very much involved in trying to get this to stop. At some of those meetings, you had neighbors who were shouting, why can't you fix this? Why is this continuing to happen?
Saquon's loved ones might believe he wasn't involved, but investigators think he may have made some dangerous enemies. Rumor has it that two of these enemies were brothers, Pierre and DeJuan Clark.
Apparently, Saquon's friend had beef with the Clarks. Well, both of them, actually.
Saquon, who was always known to have his friends back, might have joined his friend's ongoing feud with the Clark brothers.
Saquon was somebody who took things very personally. He had a sense of honor about him. If something bad was happening to people around him, Saquon was always the first one to step up and take responsibility for that, to try to fix it.
Saquon's family say his idea of payback wasn't violent like shooting, but it could still have been hurtful to DeJuan.
Saquon decided to, start dating or messing with his child's mom. It made it a little awkward, and it made it more so on a personal level.
My grandmother used to always say, you try to dig a ditch for someone else that you're going to fall in.
Many believe this personal slight, dating DeJuan's ex, is what led to Saquon's first shooting in June 2015, though Saquon seemed to try to cover for whoever shot him that time.
Saquon was saying, it's self-wound. I did it myself. I had a gun on me, and I put it in my pocket, and I shot myself in the thigh. Although the police can definitely tell that wasn't like a self-inflicted wound.
Everybody knew that there was something going on between Pierre and Saquon.
Many suspected Pierre shot Saquon, though he was never charged in that shooting. But a short time later, both men crossed paths again while in jail for other crimes.
Out of nowhere, Saquon's in the detention center with Pierre. I really don't understand why they would put them on the same unit in the same jail where they could see each other on a daily basis and talk to one another. I heard Pierre told Saquon he wanted to kill him and that whenever they get out, it's basically, whenever I see you, I'm just going to handle the situation.
Instead, after the two were released, Pierre was the one who was gunned down. At first, it seemed Pierre's brother DeJuan decided to let the feud die with him.
DeJuan very much called for peace in the aftermath of Pierre's murder. And you very much got this sense that DeJuan Clark was very publicly trying to help the family and trying to steer them through this, trying to keep them from retaliating, to hold the family together in the wake of an unimaginable tragedy. But at the same time, I think DeJuan Clark was also really struggling with issues of rage. How do you walk down the street? How do you walk past the site where your brother was murdered and not let that affect you? How do you move on from something that is in your face every single day, especially for something that was at the time an unsolved murder?
Did DeJuan's anger finally get the better of him?
This really reeked of revenge, and you can just see things fall into place. And you better believe people are talking.
Two kinds of evidence. There's direct evidence and circumstantial evidence. Direct evidence is like an eyewitness or a video that shows it. Circumstantial evidence is just what it sounds like. It's the circumstances are more consistent with guilt than with innocence. We had a lot of compelling circumstantial evidence in the case. But as a prosecutor, direct evidence is always the more compelling, more powerful kind of.
Days after the murder of Saquon Hall, detectives have zeroed in on a suspect, 30-year-old DeJuan Clark.
DeJuan Clark's brother, Pierre Clark, had been murdered less than a month prior to Saquon's death. The primary suspect in that case was Saquon Hall. So our belief was that DeJuan Clark murdered Saquon Hall as an act of revenge for Saquon murdering his brother.
So far, none of the eyewitnesses have been willing to identify DeJuan as the shooter. But the many stories about the bad blood between the two men make it hard for investigators to believe no one recognized DeJuan.
When you start hearing a running gun battle, you were going to get people looking out their window to see what's going on. And they had just come back from the club, so there were other people milling around. It was not just Saquon and DeJuan out there. There were other people out there.
There was a significant amount of witness intimidation that was aimed at them, and they were very scared to come to court. So a big part of our job was to try to counteract that, to put them at ease.
Within a week, detectives convinced one of the people involved to come forward.
The individual who drove DeJuan from the scene was ultimately located by law enforcement and provided that information to law enforcement.
According to the eyewitnesses, it started with DeJuan finding out Saquon was in the neighborhood.
The early morning hours of July 2nd, everybody was kind of coming back from the club. Saquon found himself around the area of First Street. Problem is, DeJuan also found him there.
To draw Saquon out, DeJuan apparently issued a challenge.
My brother got a phone call saying like, oh, Wani's over here and he's faking, or faking meaning like telling him come out, like, you're basically looking for my brother or whatever. And my brother, although he was little and very skinny, he had like no fear in his heart. Like he was trying to fight the biggest sumo wrestler he could find. He would step out there.
Saquon left the party at his friend's house looking for DeJuan. But DeJuan was already lying in wait.
They went around the corner, and then Wani just started shooting at him. But he started to run, and once he got shot in the back and he, hit the ground at the end of the sign, DeJuan came up and finished him, shot him in the head, and walked down the sidewalk right past the car that the young ladies were sitting in.
And he did this motion to them as he walked past, as if to suggest, shh, right?
When investigators questioned the two young women who were with Saquon again, they confirmed the story.
They did not know him. He wasn't known to them. They did identify him in photo lineups to the police later. And it was through that we were able to identify DeJuan Clark as the shooter. After a warrant was issued for DeJuan Clark's arrest, the next step, of course, is that law enforcement had to find him and arrest him.
But DeJuan has already left the state.
We interviewed as many people as we could find that had contact with DeJuan.
They couldn't find him. It was like, y'all taking a long time to find somebody that really doesn't have too many resources. I didn't want it to be like my brother ever died for no reason. I did hear that he had probably went to North Carolina.
Kentree shares this lead with investigators, who immediately act on it.
We utilized the U.S. Marshals Task Force to track him down and find him. The Marshals Task Force is comprised of local jurisdictions that come together and they look for people. That's what they do. They're very good at it.
On July 21st, 2016, U.S. Marshals finally get a tip on DeJuan's whereabouts.
He was found in North Carolina. He went down there, I want to say, with a cousin. He showed up unannounced at a family member's home with a black trash bag full of his stuff, wanting to stay there.
So the detectives, Detective Gill and Detective Oakley, went to North Carolina to get DeJuan.
Nearly 3 weeks after the murder of Saquon Hall, investigators traveled to North Carolina to arrest his suspected killer, DeJuan Clark. They also want to talk to the family members DeJuan had contacted there.
Part of it is you want to retrace somebody's steps. Somebody shows up at your house with a black trash bag full of their stuff saying, I want to stay. What's the first thing you're going to say? What happened? Why are you here? And so as detectives, we want to put all that together. You could find somebody that he confessed to. You could find somebody who has a little more information.
To their surprise, detectives find DeJuan lounging by the pool.
He's living his best life. He was trying to figure out who said that he was there, if anybody. So in his head, he's trying to put things together.
While DeJuan is taken to jail to await extradition back to Virginia, detectives search the house.
Now, bear in mind, DeJuan was arrested in the swimming pool. He didn't have any of his personal items. They were all still in that house, in the bag, and in the room where he was staying. So there are pieces of this that come together with the contents of the bag.
One of the key pieces of evidence is DeJuan's phone.
Cell site location data put DeJuan Clark in that area at the date and time of the homicide. In addition, further cell phone evidence showed that DeJuan had received a text message within minutes of the homicide, which said, "Got him." That was from a known associate of DeJuan's, who may also have been in the area that night.
It was sent right after the murder, which leads to more witnesses and more information in this investigation.
DeJuan denies any involvement in Saquon's shooting. But by the time police get him back to Virginia, he changed his tune.
I remember at the jail pulling him out of a cruiser. He wanted cigarettes. He wanted to smoke. And DeJuan, as he smoked, would talk. And I remember sitting outside of the jail having about a 30-minute conversation with him.
He expressed some sorrow, some regret. This was very much a heat of the moment. This was an anger that had sat in him, and I don't think it brought him any relief.
DeJuan stops short of confessing to the murder of Saquon Hall. But he does admit to blaming Saquon for his brother's death.
After the murder of Pierre Clark, DeJuan would go down to the location where Pierre was killed. And there was a memorial set up at a tree right there. And he didn't go to work and was spiraling, and the murder of his brother was weighing heavy on him. Saquon Hall was allegedly talking about having killed Pierre Clark. It just got too much for DeJuan to handle. He wanted to make a deal. But as detectives, we're not in a position to make a deal. That's something that only the Commonwealth's attorney can do, state's attorneys in some jurisdictions. In Virginia, it's a Commonwealth's attorney. That is our guy, Sean Sherlock.
DeJuan expressed some remorse about the situation, but he never admitted that he's the one that killed Saquon. So, in considering then, as a prosecutor, how we were going to present the case in court, the question was, all right, what's the evidence here?
Prosecutors feel confident they have a strong enough case against DeJuan to avoid making a deal. On September 26, 2016, they present their evidence in a preliminary hearing.
That's the first court date where DeJuan's in court, we're in court, and we have to present evidence to a judge. And these witnesses, the two eyewitnesses in that car, were subpoenaed for court that day, and they were going to have to testify. Because of the witness intimidation that had been going on and their fear of reprisals here for cooperating with the investigation, they were very scared about being in that place. We ultimately brought them into the court through a side door.
Despite their fear, the two women provide a detailed account of the shooting.
When one of the eyewitnesses testified, I got to that point in her testimony where she was required to identify the person whom she was talking about having seen shoot Saquon in open court. And initially, she couldn't even make eye contact. She couldn't even look at him. She was too scared. And I remember I had to walk a little closer to her and ask her to look around that room and tell the judge if she saw that person here today. And she very bravely at that point did, and then unequivocally identified DeJuan Clark as the shooter.
After the hearing, instead of taking his chances with a jury, DeJuan Clark pleads guilty to second-degree murder.
On July 27th of 2017, DeJuan Clark was sentenced to 43 years. 12 of those 43 years were suspended to do a 31-year stint in prison, and he was also ordered to pay $5,000 towards the funeral costs for Saquon Hall. The Commonwealth of Virginia, there is no early parole in Virginia, and so DeJuan Clark will be in prison for the entirety of those 31 years.
31 years that is a large chunk of somebody's life, and that is 31 years for a rash, heat of the moment decision that will haunt him even after those 31 years are over.
As a detective, you know these people and you see the struggles and you see the successes. And you, as a detective, you want to celebrate the successes and help with the struggle. And when you see a young life like Pierre Clark or Saquon Hall taken for senseless reasons, this street justice and thug life and all this stuff just ends up in people dead.
I feel like second degree wasn't enough. I just feel like my brother's gone. A life is gone. He's never coming back. So in a sense, I feel life for life. So if you took his life, I feel like you should spend the rest of yours behind bars. But I mean, I know eventually one day when I'm about 50 or so, he'll be home. And then I just will have to prepare myself for that.
I can't say that I wanted more time for him. I mean, I did feel like that in the beginning, but I just leave it alone and, let God settle it.
Saquon Hall was gunned down before a full investigation into Pierre Clark's slaying. He was never charged, and no direct evidence ties him to that murder. Saquon's mother had heard from a witness that another man was the shooter. Still, Pierre Clark was murdered, and then Saquon was killed. In this case, there are no winners, and everyone hopes the cycle of violence stops.
I talked to DeJuan's mother after the court hearing. She lost a son, two sons, actually. Pierre and DeJuan both had children, and so when these things happen, it just doesn't happen to one person. All of our lives are connected to someone else. But I just believe forgiveness is the key.